On the 5th day after giving birth, my husband told me, "Whoever brings a kid into the world is the one who has to raise it." With nowhere else to go, I took my son in my arms and headed for my parents' home. A short time later, I received a phone call from my husband. A single sentence from me was all it took to leave him horrified. Just 5 days after a C-section, the pain still a sharp, searing line across my abdomen, I was lying in a cold hospital bed in Chicago. The long scar from the surgery was a constant irritation, and waves of sharp pain, as if 1,000 needles were piercing me at once, shot through my body intermittently. Every time I tried to move, I would grit my teeth without realizing it, and cold sweat would soak my back and the thin hospital gown. My newborn son, Leo, slept peacefully in his bassinet beside me, his tiny face red and wrinkled. Looking at him, a wave of tenderness and a strange anxiety washed over me. This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, but all I felt was an immense emptiness and a terrifying loneliness. In the beds next to and across from me, other new mothers received daily visits from their husbands. One brought lovingly made chicken noodle soup, another a fruit basket, and a third awkwardly tried to cradle his newborn, completely unsure of what to do. Their laughter and cooing seemed to cut through the sharp, antiseptic smell that permeated the room. Only the space around my bed remained desolate. Since I had given birth, my husband, Ryan, had only come once. He stood at a distance, gave the baby a cursory glance, and immediately pulled out his phone to start typing. He answered my questions with one-word replies and left quickly, saying he had an urgent matter at the office. 5 days had already passed. That morning, the doctor told me my condition was stable and I could be discharged the next day. I sent a text to Ryan in the morning, but it wasn't until dusk that he slowly appeared at the doorway. I could instantly smell the alcohol on his breath. It wasn't an overwhelming stench, but the sour tang of someone who had drunk too much the night before, and it made me frown. He didn't look at the baby or ask how I was. He went straight to the foot of my bed, shoved my purse aside, and dropped into the chair. "Grace, you got any money?" he asked, his eyes glued to his phone screen. My heart sank. I swallowed, my throat as dry as dust. Where would I get money? I paid the hospital bill with what my parents sent me a few days ago. What's wrong? I'm broke. I've spent too much on business dinners and drinks lately, Ryan said irritably, his brow furrowed. Call your parents and tell them to send more. I froze. My ears were ringing. He hadn't asked if I was in pain. He hadn't asked if the baby was eating or sleeping well. All he needed was money. Hot tears began to stream down my cheeks. What did you just say? I just gave birth. Our son Leo has barely seen your face. You can't even stay with us for a single day? I held on to one last shred of hope. I hoped he would show a flicker of humanity, a hint of responsibility as a father. But Ryan tossed his phone onto the bed. He jumped up and pointed a finger at me. I will never forget that gesture. You're being such a drag. I already told you I'm busy. You had him. So you raise him, and the money is your problem too. Don't drag me into your mess. I have to run my business, meet with people, and network. If you're not going to help, at least shut your mouth. I was breathless, unable to say a word. And listen to me, Ryan continued, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. I'm the one who brings home the bacon in this house. If you're going to live off me, then act like it and keep quiet. Don't bother me again. After saying this, he quickly put on his shoes, yanked open the door, and left. The slam of the door echoed in my chest like a hammer blow. The entire room fell silent, as if a bucket of cold water had been thrown over it. The mothers in the other beds held their breath. Soon, they started coughing and looking away. I could feel their eyes on me, a mixture of pity and curiosity. Shame, pain, and sorrow overwhelmed me. I looked at Leo. The baby was still fast asleep. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I cried until my pillow was soaked, but strangely, I couldn't make a sound. I felt something inside my chest shatter into 1,000 icy fragments. The tears flowed inward, solidifying like ice. The vows of love, the whispered promises, had all vanished like a soap bubble just 5 days after I gave birth. You had him, so you raise him. Those words became a knife, tearing my heart apart. In that instant, I knew my life would never be the same. Instinctively, I held my son as if he were the only life raft that could save me from that ocean of despair. I stayed awake all night. I didn't have the courage to cry out loud, afraid of disturbing the baby and the other mothers. I just held my son and stared at the white hospital ceiling. Ryan's words, sharp as blades, echoed in my head. I felt abandoned in the vastness of Chicago. Mustering my courage, I called my mother. Her sleepy voice came through the line. "Hello, Grace. What's wrong at this hour? Are you and the baby okay?" Hearing my mother's voice, all the emotions I had suppressed came crashing down. I finally broke down sobbing. "Mom, I can't do this anymore." I didn't need to explain anything. My mother knew me better than anyone. She just listened to my sobs in silence. She knew exactly what kind of person Ryan was. When I told them I was marrying him, my parents had been opposed. My father had told me, "That boy doesn't look like a family man. He's all flash and no substance. If you marry him, you'll suffer your whole life." But back then, I was blinded by love and didn't listen. Now, the price I had to pay was far too high. There, honey, stop crying," my mother said. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was barely holding back her own emotions. "If you cry so much, you'll lose your milk. I'm heading out there first thing in the morning. Pack your things and come home with me. Don't stay there another minute." My mother hung up. Her words, "Come home with me," flowed like a warm stream into my parched heart. I waited all night for dawn. The next morning, after feeding Leo, the door to my room opened. It was my mother. She looked thinner than I remembered, with more gray in her hair. She had almost no luggage, just an old handbag. When she saw me, she didn't cry. She simply walked over, silently took Leo from my arms, and cradled him. My mother's gaze, shifting between her grandson and me, was filled with compassion. "Grace, get your things," she said, her voice hoarse. "I already called your brother. He's on his way with the truck. We'll go back to the farm together. But all my things are at his place." I hesitated. "It doesn't matter," my mother interrupted firmly. "I've already taken care of your things. I just came from his apartment." I was stunned. "You were at Ryan's apartment?" "Yes, I just came from there," my mother said calmly. "He wasn't home. It looks like he hasn't slept there since last night. The place was a pigsty. It smelled of stale cigarettes and liquor. I've already packed your clothes and the baby's things into 2 suitcases. Your brother is waiting downstairs." I didn't understand how my mother had gotten into the apartment we lived in, but I knew that when she set her mind to something, nothing could stop her. My mother wasn't a woman of many words, but she was a woman of action. She would do anything for her daughter and grandson. My brother Mike was there too. He was a long-haul trucker. Without a word, he loaded the luggage. When a sharp pain shot through my scar as I walked, he leaned in and whispered, "Lean on my shoulder. Take it slow." His strong back gave me a strange sense of security. We left the hospital without saying goodbye to Ryan. He hadn't called me since the previous afternoon either. I thought this was the end. My brother's truck began to pull away from the noisy, polluted city. I sat in the passenger seat with Leo in my arms. My mother was behind me, in the small sleeper cab where my brother rested. As we traveled down the long interstate, I watched the skyscrapers shrink in the distance. There was a time I thought that place was my home, my sanctuary, but it had been nothing more than a terrible nightmare. No one spoke in the truck. My brother focused on driving, and my mother only spoke occasionally. "Are you hungry? Have one of the muffins I brought. Oh, look at my sweet boy, sleeping so soundly." I looked at the sleeping baby in my lap. I suddenly realized I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I had my son, and most importantly, a family waiting for me with open arms. I wasn't alone anymore. I had to be strong. After more than 4 hours on the road, we reached the turnoff for our town. On both sides of the familiar gravel road, endless fields of corn stretched out. From somewhere, the wind carried the faint smell of a wood fire. It was the peaceful scent of home. The truck stopped in front of our house. It was a single-story farmhouse with a red roof, old but clean and well-kept. The ivy covering the yard's fence was as green as ever. My father was waiting for us at the door. He must have been watching ever since the truck turned onto our street. My father was a man of few words. He had spent his life tending to a few acres of land, some pigs, and chickens. He was quiet and expressed all his love through actions. When I told him I was marrying Ryan, he had been the one most strongly opposed. He only said one thing: "I don't trust that man. He's not someone who will make you happy." But seeing my determination, he had eventually sighed and helped me with the wedding preparations. Now I was returning defeated, with a newborn grandson in my arms. As soon as the truck stopped, my father hurried over. When my brother opened the door, my father didn't look at me first. His gaze was fixed on Leo in my arms. He held out his sun-beaten, calloused hands, which were trembling slightly. "Come here. Let Grandpa hold you." I carefully handed him the baby. It was clear this was the first time he had held a newborn. He was stiff and awkward, but his eyes shone with a strange happiness. After looking at his grandson, he lifted his head and looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. "You're home now. That's all that matters," he said. His voice choked. "Come inside. It's hot out here." My mother and my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, had already prepared a clean room. My sister-in-law's name was Sarah. She was a typical farm wife, kind-hearted and hard-working. She was happy to see me and helped with the luggage. She put fresh sheets on the bed and hung a mosquito net. "Grace, don't you worry about a thing, just rest. You just gave birth, you must be weak. Mom and I will take care of everything." Lying on that old but warm bed, which smelled of sunshine, I felt as if a ship that had been adrift in a stormy sea had finally reached a peaceful harbor. That night, we all had dinner together. My father, my mother, my brother, my sister-in-law, and Leo and I. My mother and sister-in-law had made me a roast chicken, the meat tender and flavorful, the broth rich and comforting. I ate with tears welling in my eyes. How long had it been since I had such a pleasant family dinner? Since I got married and moved in with Ryan, I always had to be mindful of his moods and barely ate until he came home from work. Ryan was constantly out on the pretext of business dinners, and family dinners had become a luxury. After dinner, my brother and sister-in-law went to their house next door. My mother was busy giving Leo a bath. Only my father and I were left on the porch. He lit a cigarette, exhaling a long plume of smoke as he looked out at the yard, dimly lit by a single yellow bulb. After a long silence, my father spoke. "I suppose if you've come all this way, you've thought things through." I lowered my head. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry for not listening to you." My father waved his hand. "What's past is past. No need to dwell on it. That's life. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to know where you went wrong. Now that you're here, even though we're poor, you and your son won't go hungry. As long as you don't feel miserable, that's enough for me." "I'm not. I just feel like I've been a burden to you." My father took another deep drag from his cigarette, then stood up and went inside. A moment later, he came out with an old folder. It contained our family documents. He placed the papers in my hand. "First thing tomorrow morning, you'll go register Leo's birth, and while you're at it, we'll list him as a resident here. From now on, this child is the grandson of his maternal grandparents. He will take his mother's last name." I felt like I had been struck. In our town, a child taking the mother's last name instead of the father's was almost unheard of. Registering him at my parents' house was like my father proclaiming to the whole town that this child belonged to our family and had no connection to his in-laws. It was the greatest shield and protection my father could offer me and my son. A lump formed in my throat, and I couldn't speak. My father placed his rough hand on my shoulder. "Get some rest. Your father will take care of everything. As long as I'm alive, no one will mistreat you or your son." My father's hand was heavy not just with its strength, but with the weight of love and responsibility. That night, for the first time in 5 days, I slept deeply, without dreams. I knew that no matter how fierce the storm outside, I had the strongest shield in the world, my father. 3 days after my arrival, my father had finished all the paperwork. My son, Leo, was registered with my last name, becoming Leo Miller, and his name was proudly listed on our family records, right below mine. Holding his birth certificate in my hand, I felt a great weight lift. My son now had a clear place to belong and to return to. My mother took care of me during my postpartum recovery in the traditional way. Every day she prepared warm baths for me and made sure I had nourishing food. My sister-in-law took care of all the cooking for the house and even washed Leo's diapers. My brother fixed up the room where I was staying, replaced the light bulb with a brighter one, and installed a more secure lock on the door. The whole family was doing everything they could to make me feel comfortable, but that peace didn't last long. Apparently, Ryan had returned home. Finding the apartment empty and his wife and son gone, he started calling. The first time the phone rang, I was breastfeeding Leo. Seeing the name Ryan on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. I hesitated. My father, who was sitting next to me, said, "Answer it. Let's see what he has to say. Put it on speaker." With trembling hands, I pressed the call button. "Hello." Ryan's shout erupted from the other end. "You bitch. Where did you take my son? You come back right now. Right now." I pressed my lips together and gripped the phone tightly. "You think hiding out in that hick town solves everything? Do you know how much you've embarrassed me in front of my friends and family? When they ask me where my wife is, where my son is, what am I supposed to say? You're my wife, and that boy is my son. Come back now." I took a deep breath. "Your son? You were the one who said you had him, so you raise him." "What? What? How dare you talk back to me?" Ryan was speechless for a moment. "I was drunk that time." "Are you taking it literally? If I tell you to come back, you come back. If not, I'll drive out there and drag you back by your hair. I'm not coming back." My voice was firmer than I expected. "This is my home. Don't look for me anymore." "What?" Ryan snarled. "You've conspired with your parents to steal my son, haven't you? I'm warning you, if you don't come back, you'll regret it. I'll make your little podunk town famous all over the state." He hung up. My hands were still shaking. My father, who had been listening in silence, spoke. "He's making threats. For people like him, their pride is more important than their life. He's not worried about the child, but about his own reputation. Don't be afraid." But I was still scared. I was afraid of what he might do, that he might hurt my parents. And, just as I feared, 2 days later, Ryan showed up. He didn't come alone. He arrived in a high-end car, accompanied by 2 men. One, dressed in a suit and carrying a briefcase, looked like a lawyer. The other, with an intimidating look, had his arms covered in tattoos. He looked like one of his shady friends. The car screeched to a halt in front of our house. The whole town came out to watch. It was the first time such a large, luxurious car had appeared in our humble place. Ryan, wearing sunglasses, got out of the car with an air of arrogance. He didn't come in, but shouted from outside, "Grace Miller, get out here now." My father, who was working in the vegetable garden, straightened up at the shout. My mother also ran out of the kitchen. In my room, with the baby in my arms, I felt my heart was going to beat out of my chest. My father walked calmly to the gate. "Who are you people?" Ryan smirked. "I'm here to get my wife. Dad, don't pretend you don't know. You've hidden my wife and kidnapped my son. Today, we either clear this up, or I'm taking my wife and son with me. One or the other." "First, come inside," my father said, opening the gate. "Whatever the case, you're guests. If you have something to discuss, come in, have a glass of water, and talk." My father's calm demeanor seemed to surprise Ryan a bit. He had probably expected a scene of shouting and insults. He glanced at his companions and lifted his chin. "Let's go in. We're getting to the bottom of this today." When the 3 men entered the yard, the neighbors' murmurs grew louder. While my father faced Ryan in the yard, in the kitchen, my mother and sister-in-law continued with their chores as if nothing was happening. My mother told my sister-in-law, "Sarah, go to the garden and get some rosemary. We're going to have to slaughter a chicken. Grace needs to eat well to recover and have good milk." "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied, and calmly went to the garden. She didn't ask or show any curiosity about what was happening in the yard. To her, at that moment, my recovery was the most important thing. In my room, with the baby in my arms, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. I heard my father's voice. "Have a seat. We don't have much to offer, but have a glass of fresh water. Where's the baby's mother, not getting water for our guests?" My mother came out of the kitchen with a tray as well. She was strangely calm. She placed a glass in front of each of them and said, "Drink up." Ryan didn't touch the water. He slammed his hand on the table. "You think I came here for a tea party?" he asked. "Where have you hidden my wife and my son?" Only then did my father sit down across from Ryan. "You're saying some strange things. Grace is my daughter. What's wrong with a daughter visiting her parents? And that child is my grandson." "What do you mean we've hidden them?" Ryan was at a loss for words. The man who looked like a lawyer intervened. "Sir, we've come with good intentions. Mr. Ryan and Mrs. Grace are legally husband and wife, and the child is the son of both. The fact that Mrs. Grace took the child without her husband's consent is a violation of the civil code regarding marriage and family. We recommend you have Mrs. Grace come out so we can resolve this through dialogue. As they say, marital problems are settled between the couple." My father smiled faintly. "So you talk about laws. Then let me ask you. When my daughter was risking her life to give birth, where was the man who calls himself her husband? What country's law allows a man, after visiting his wife only once in 5 days, to tell her, 'You had him, so you raise him'?" Ryan flinched. His face turned pale. He didn't expect me to have told my father that story. I was drunk that time." "Or are you drunk your whole life?" My father's voice was deep. "When you got here, did you ask about your son? Did you bring a can of formula or a package of diapers? Or are you only concerned with your own reputation?" My father turned to the lawyer. "You say the child is the son of both. Then I ask you, here I have the child's birth certificate." My father went inside and brought out Leo's birth certificate. "His name is Leo Miller. He has his mother's last name, and his residence is this house. Legally, this child belongs to our family. If you truly want your son back, get a paternity test and file a lawsuit. We'll be happy to respond." The lawyer took the certificate, and his face changed color. He didn't expect us to have handled the registration and residency so quickly. Legally, it was a masterstroke. It showed our family's preparation and determination. Ryan could no longer maintain his arrogant attitude. He shouted, "Damn it, Grace! Get out here now!" Hearing his voice from my room, I shuddered. Leo, scared, started to cry. Just then, my sister-in-law came in with a steaming plate of roast chicken. The aroma of herbs and poultry filled the room. She placed the plate in front of me and said, "Grace, eat before it gets cold. It's normal for babies to get scared. Come on, eat. Your father is handling things outside." Seeing the hot food, my sister-in-law's calm, my mother's serenity, and my father standing firm outside, I suddenly realized I was no longer afraid. I wasn't alone. I had an impregnable fortress. I hugged my son and started to eat. I ate with gusto. I had to be healthy to breastfeed my son. In the yard, my father's firm voice continued to resonate. "My daughter is not an object. She's not something you can call when you feel like it and discard when you get tired. Since you've come all this way, I'll tell you clearly, if you had come as a repentant husband, as a responsible father, our home would have welcomed you. But if you've come to cause trouble and make threats, then turn around and leave. We may be poor, but this is not a house where you can just walk in and do as you please." The man with the tattoos, seeing the situation turning sour, stood up. "The boss is right. If the old man won't bring her out nicely, we'll go in and get her ourselves." Just as he took a step, my brother Mike appeared out of nowhere, home from a trucking run. He was a big, strong man. He stood there silently, staring down the burly man. "I dare you to take another step." The man froze. He looked at my brother, then at Ryan. Ryan realized he couldn't do anything more. Unable to contain his anger, he said, "Fine. Good for you. Keep protecting her. Let's see how long that lasts. Let's go." They returned to the car, defeated. Before getting in, Ryan pointed toward the house. "Grace Miller, you stay there. I swear you'll regret this. I'll make it so you can never hold your head up again in your life." The car sped off with a roar, leaving a cloud of black smoke. Only then did the neighbors approach, whispering. My father waved his hand. "It's nothing. Family matters. Go on home now." He closed the gate. The noisy world was shut out. Inside, I had finished the entire plate of chicken. I was sweating and felt much lighter. Ryan's stormy visit was over, but it left a vague unease in my heart. "I'll make it so you can never hold your head up again." His final threat echoed in my mind. I knew Ryan's character well. He was vain, vindictive, and capable of using the vilest means. It was clear he wouldn't give up easily, but that worry was soon replaced by a more realistic one: money. Life in the country wasn't as expensive as in the city, but a newborn needed many things: diapers, formula, because my own milk wasn't enough. Later, there would be vaccinations. My family wasn't wealthy. My parents lived off a few acres of land and a few chickens. My brother and sister-in-law had to raise their 2 children. My arrival was an additional burden. That night, lying in bed, I watched Leo sleep. It was an old farmhouse, with wallpaper peeling in some places. The old ceiling fan spun slowly, making a creaking noise. From outside, I could clearly hear my father's dry cough and my mother's deep sigh. I suddenly felt that I had been very selfish. I had only fled here, seeking peace under my parents' protection. I hadn't considered that they were getting older. At an age when they should be resting and being cared for by their children, they were straining to protect me and care for their grandson. I didn't want to be a burden anymore. I didn't want to give Ryan the opportunity to come back and look down on my family for being poor. That night, under the dim light, I turned off the lamp so the baby could sleep better. I looked at my son sleeping like an angel. Silently, I made a promise to myself and to him. I have to change. I have to stand on my own 2 feet. I have to earn money not only to raise my son, but to honor my parents and defend my family's honor. I couldn't go back to the city, at least not for now. What did I have? I had a bachelor's degree in business administration. It had been almost a year since I left my job to have the baby, but the knowledge was still there, and I had an old laptop. The internet had reached our town. An idea crossed my mind: maybe I could work online. Over the next few days, despite being in the middle of my postpartum recovery, I started looking for work on my phone, hiding it from my parents and sister-in-law. I looked for remote jobs: data entry, transcription, bookkeeping for small businesses. It wasn't easy. Most were wary of my employment gap or doubted I could meet deadlines living in the countryside. There were also scammers who asked for a deposit before giving you work, but I didn't get discouraged. I had nowhere to retreat. I started with the smallest job I could find, transcribing an old book for someone I met online. The pay was barely $50, but to me at that moment, it felt like a fortune. The sleepless nights began. During the day, I tried to be a good mother, napping when the baby slept, but when night came and the whole family was asleep, it was my time to work. I would set up the laptop on the old desk and use headphones so the sound of the keyboard wouldn't wake the baby. The surgical scar still ached, and my back was killing me from sitting for so long. My eyes grew tired from staring at the screen, but whenever I felt exhausted, I would look at my son. Seeing his little lips move gave me new strength. I had to work in secret. I was afraid my mother would find out. If she knew I was working during my recovery period, she would be upset and make me stop. I received the $50 from my first job in my account. I cried. It was money mixed with sweat and tears, but it was also money of hope and independence. I treasured that money. With it, I would buy formula for my son and give it to my mother to go to the market. I knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead was long, but I would never forget the promise of that night. Working during postpartum recovery is a kind of suffering only those who have lived it can understand. My body was still a mess. The surgical scar ached, especially when I sat in the same position for a long time, and my back felt like it was going to break. My mother was very worried about my health. She insisted that I lie down, that I not sit up, that I not touch cold water, but bookkeeping and data entry required sitting in front of a computer. I had to work like a thief. By day, I pretended to be a good daughter, a perfect mother. I ate the chicken soup and lentils my mother prepared for me, breastfed my son, and changed his diapers. I pretended to sleep a lot, but as soon as my mother or sister-in-law left the room, I would quietly get up, place pillows around Leo to keep him safe, and carefully open my laptop. I turned off all the sound and lowered the screen brightness to the minimum, so no one would notice. My room was small and stuffy. The air was suffocating. Sweat ran down my neck and back, and the scar itched and bothered me. I couldn't turn the fan up too high in case the baby caught a cold. After typing for a few minutes, I would get up to stretch my aching back and check on the baby again. I was always on edge. If I heard my mother's footsteps in the yard, I would quickly close the laptop, hide it under the pillow, and flop onto the bed, pretending to be asleep. One time, I was so engrossed in the numbers, organizing the accounts for a small supermarket, that with my headphones on, I didn't notice. My mother suddenly opened the door. She was carrying a bowl of noodle soup. I jumped and slammed the laptop shut, but it was too late. My mother stood frozen in the doorway. She put the bowl on the nightstand. Her eyes were a mixture of anger and pity. "Grace, what are you doing? It hasn't even been a month since you gave birth, and you're already glued to that computer. Don't you care about your body at all?" I lowered my head. I was just checking the news. "What news? What news makes so much typing noise?" My mother's expression turned severe. "You think you can fool me? I've seen the light on in your room for several nights now. How long did you plan to keep this from me? Look at your back, you're soaked in sweat. If you recover like this, you'll pay for it for the rest of your life." My mother started to cry. Her crying broke my heart. "Mom, I'm sorry, but I can't just sit here and do nothing. I don't want to be a burden to you and Dad anymore. I have to earn money to raise Leo. I don't want people to look down on our family." My mother wiped her tears and sat on the edge of the bed, taking my hand. "Honey, your parents still have the strength to take care of you. Please, don't mistreat your body like this. If you get sick, what good is the money? Then who will our Leo rely on?" My mother's words snapped me to my senses. She was right. I had been too hasty, but I couldn't stop. I hugged my mother. "Mom, don't worry. I'll be careful. Really, I'll just do a little when I have time. Please, don't stop me. I have to do this. I have to prove to myself that I'm not a freeloader." My mother sighed deeply. She knew she couldn't stop me. From that day on, my mother didn't scold me anymore. Instead, she took even better care of me. She prepared more nutritious meals, and at night she would bring me a glass of warm milk or a snack. And while I worked, she would watch me and occasionally say, "Rest a little, get up and walk around." My first job was organizing the books for an online shop owner, and I earned $50. When I saw that $50 in my account, my hands trembled. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was my sweat, my tears, and my pride. I kept taking on more jobs. At first, they were small data entry tasks for a few dollars. Gradually, I started preparing monthly tax filings for small shops. They didn't need a full-time accountant, just someone to organize their books at the end of the month. I worked diligently and with attention to detail. My good reputation spread. One client recommended me to another. $100, $200. My income gradually increased. By the time Leo was 3 months old, I had withdrawn $300 in cash. It was all the money I had earned through so much effort during my recovery. I gave $200 to my mother. "Mom, take this to use when you go to the market. Consider it payment for our food." My mother was surprised to see the money. She pushed my hand away. "Where are you getting this money? Use this to buy formula for Leo." "I have money." I pressed the bills into her hand. "It's money I earned myself. It carries my sweat. If you don't accept it, I'll be upset." My mother looked at me and then at the money. Her eyes turned red. She nodded without a word. With the remaining $100, I asked my brother to take me to the next town over. I bought the best can of formula for Leo and a large package of diapers. I also bought a tin of good tea for my father, a new sweater for my mother, and some fabric for my sister-in-law. When I returned home with the shopping, the whole family was surprised. My father held the tin of tea with trembling hands. Where did you get this money?" "I earned it," I said proudly. "I do bookkeeping jobs online. Dad, Mom, don't worry. Your daughter is not useless." My father turned away without a word to secretly wipe away a tear. I knew he was proud of me. That night, during the dinner to celebrate Leo's 3-month milestone, I felt infinitely light. The first money earned with my own sweat had not only allowed me to buy formula and diapers, but also to regain my honor and confidence. But life is never a bed of roses. Just as a faint light began to shine in my life, Ryan struck again. He no longer called to threaten me. Instead, he used a more subtle and malicious method. In a small town, the deadliest weapon that can kill without a knife is a rumor. Ryan knew he couldn't come here and cause a scene anymore. My father and brother were too solid a shield. He started spreading false rumors in Chicago. He complained to his friends and colleagues about how miserable he was as a husband. He said I was a spendthrift, that I didn't work and only cared about my appearance. And the height of his lies was to insinuate that I had been unfaithful to him with another man. She complained that I didn't spend time with her, but I had to work and do business to support her. She, at home with nothing to do, started getting other ideas. Now she's taken my son. She won't answer my calls. I went to my in-laws' house and they wouldn't even let me see her. She's probably run off with some rich guy. Those words passed from Ryan's mouth to his friends, and from there to some neighbors from my town who worked in Chicago, finally reaching our small, quiet town. The first person to bring the story home was the next-door neighbor. She was famous for being up on all the town gossip. She liked to meddle and talk, but she wasn't a bad person. She just had a tongue faster than her brain. That day, the neighbor came over with a bowl of rice pudding. She said it was so Leo would grow up healthy. My mother received her kindly. The neighbor set down the bowl and looked me up and down. "Oh, our Grace, you've gotten prettier and have better color after your recovery. Who does Leo look like? He's so handsome." "Thank you, ma'am. Please sit and have a glass of water," I said with a smile. The neighbor waved her hand. No, I just have something to tell you. I'm telling you this as someone with more life experience, so don't take it the wrong way. I've heard a lot of things about you." My mother's expression hardened. "What do you mean, neighbor?" The neighbor leaned closer to my mother and whispered, but loud enough for me to hear. "The folks working in Chicago told me that Grace's husband, Ryan, is suffering a lot, that he works himself to the bone to bring money home, and that Grace cheated on him and has now come here with the child to live off her parents. Is it true?" Crash. The pitcher my mother was holding fell to the floor. Hot water splashed everywhere. My mother was trembling. Her face went from pale to red with anger. "Neighbor, watch your words. Who told you such a horrible thing?" The neighbor was also startled. "No, I'm just saying what people are saying. They say Ryan came to look for her and you chased him off. That Grace is a real piece of work, that she cheated on her husband." "Be quiet!" my mother shouted. I had never seen her so angry. "Do you know what my daughter has been through? Do you know where her husband was when she was giving birth? Do you know what state she came home in? If you don't know, don't speak. Leave. We don't welcome visitors like you in this house." I stood frozen. Shame and anger rose in my throat. I never imagined Ryan would be capable of inventing such a blatant story, reversing the roles of victim and perpetrator. He had turned himself into the victim and me into the adulteress. The neighbor, scared by my mother's reaction, left grumbling. I was just repeating what I heard. No need to get so worked up. As soon as she left, my mother collapsed into a chair, covering her face. "My God, why is my daughter so unlucky? It's hard enough having a bad husband, and now she has to endure these slanders. How are we going to face people in town?" I went over and hugged her. My heart ached, but I knew I shouldn't cry. "Mom, don't cry. It doesn't matter what other people say. A straight tree doesn't break in the wind. As long as Dad, you, my brother, and my sister-in-law believe me, that's enough." Just then, my father, returning from the garden, heard the conversation. His face darkened. Without a word, he went straight to the door, bolted it, and headed to the house next door. A moment later, we heard his firm voice from the other side of the fence. "Neighbor, I'll tell you one thing. My daughter's business is our family's business. But if I hear, from you or anyone else in this town, a single malicious word about my daughter again, our good neighborliness is over. The people of this town know what kind of girl Grace is, and I know very well what kind of man her husband is, so be careful what you say." From that day on, the house next door was quiet, but I knew the rumor hadn't disappeared. It had simply gone from a public topic to a whispered one. People looked at me differently. They didn't say it openly, but they muttered behind my back. They looked at me with curiosity, pity, and sometimes contempt. I felt the pressure. When I went out, some people would greet me, others would avoid me. I knew Ryan had achieved his goal. He had managed to tarnish my honor in the very place where I lived. The promise of that night echoed in my ears again. I don't just have to earn money, I have to live well. I have to live in such a dazzling way that I show everyone who the person who truly deserves to be despised is. When Leo was about to turn 2 months old, it was time for his first dose of the pentavalent vaccine. I could no longer stay hidden at home. That morning, I dressed carefully. Though they were casual clothes, they were clean and neat. I put Leo in the baby carrier, threw on a jacket to protect him from the sun, and got out the moped. My mother warned me from the door. Be careful. Don't pay attention to what people say. Don't get into any trouble. Yes, Mom, I replied, but inside, I was already prepared. I was no longer the old Grace. I was not the person who would bow her head and remain silent at any comment. The town's health clinic was filled with the cries of children and mothers calling to one another. In our town, children's vaccinations were also a social event to catch up. I registered quietly and waited for my turn. I sat in a secluded corner, focusing only on calming Leo so he wouldn't get scared. But no matter how hard I tried to avoid it, trouble found me. Hey, look, isn't that Grace, Mr. Miller's daughter? I heard a shrill voice. I looked up. It was Ryan's youngest aunt. She lived in the next town over, but for some reason, she was here today. She was holding her grandson, and next to her were several other women. I took a deep breath and replied calmly, "Hello, Auntie, it's been a while." The aunt twisted her lips and looked me up and down. She said loudly, so the whole clinic could hear, "They said you left your husband and came back to town. I thought you'd be a wreck, but you look great. I can see your parents are taking good care of you. Huh, how comfortable." All eyes turned to me. I heard murmurs. They say she left her husband. She's the daughter of that family. There's a rumor she cheated on him in Chicago. I clenched my fists. Thanks for your concern, Auntie. My parents are taking good care of me, so it's not so hard. Not so hard? The aunt sneered. I heard you were a handful in Chicago. My nephew Ryan worked himself to the bone to support you, and you, at home without kids, were busy with your own things. And now that you finally have one, you cheat on your husband on top of it. And you come here to live off your parents. Aren't you ashamed? Her words stung like a slap. They were cruel and malicious. She was deliberately humiliating me in front of everyone. Leo, in my arms, sensed the tension and started to whimper. While calming him, I looked the aunt straight in the eye. This time, I wasn't going to back down. Auntie, I respect you because you're my elder, but you should watch your words. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear and firm. The clinic fell into a dead silence. Whether I left my husband or he left me, that's my private life. But I have not abandoned my son. I am not ashamed to raise my son with my own 2 hands. The one who should be ashamed is a father who denies his own child. A person who, 5 days after his wife gives birth, tells her, "You had him, so you raise him." A despicable being who threatens his wife and child. I paused and looked into her eyes, which were wide with surprise. And you say I was unfaithful? Ask your nephew where he was and what he was spending his money on during the countless nights he didn't come home. I, 9 months pregnant, went to the doctor alone and hand-sewed every one of my son's diapers. Where was I supposed to have been unfaithful? Tell me. Or could it be that your nephew sees thieves where there are none? The aunt's face went from red to pale. She didn't expect me to respond like that. And I'll say it clearly to you and everyone here. A husband who is trash gets thrown in the trash. That's not foolishness. It's a smart choice. I have returned to my parents' home and am under their protection. I am not living off anyone. I work with my own hands to raise my son. I live with my head held high. If you're not going to help, at least spare me your curses. After saying this, I stopped looking at her and turned away. Just then, the nurse called my name. Grace Miller. For the child Leo Miller. Please. I responded with a clear, "Coming," and entered the vaccination room with my son. The clinic remained silent. I heard the aunt mutter a curse and storm off with her friends. I knew that starting tomorrow, another version of the story would circulate, but I no longer cared. I had defended my son and myself. On my way out, a woman who had been sitting next to me offered me a tissue. Here, to wipe the baby's sweat. You did the right thing. I feel so relieved. That's how it should be. We women have to change. How long are we going to put up with this? I looked at her, surprised. She smiled. Keep your head up. People who talk badly will shut up on their own when they see you living well. I nodded and thanked her. On the way home, with my son in my arms, the sun seemed especially bright. The story from the health clinic spread faster than the rumors Ryan had started. People didn't just talk about how I had confronted his aunt. They repeated my exact words. A husband who is trash gets thrown in the trash. It's a smart choice. In a town like ours, those words were a revolutionary declaration. For ages, women were expected to revere their husbands like gods, to endure beatings and insults for the sake of the children. Suddenly, I became a case study. Some supported me, saying I was brave. Others clicked their tongues, saying I was shameless. Who's going to want her now? They said. What I didn't expect was for the story to reach the president of the town's Women's Association. A few days later, the president came to my house. She wasn't alone. She was with another board member from the association. My mother, a little nervous about the visit, hurried to make coffee. The president was about my mother's age, but she was an energetic and determined woman. She looked at me sympathetically. Hello, Mrs. Miller. And hello, Grace. We've come from the association to see you and the baby. Oh, come in, come in. Please excuse the humble house, my mother said, a bit flustered. The president smiled. Don't say that, ma'am. We're not here for anything important, just to see how our members are doing. Grace, it must be so hard after giving birth, right? The president turned to me. Grace, I've heard your story. I lowered my head. My heart was beating a little faster. I didn't know if this would be good or bad. You did the right thing, the president said. To my surprise, I heard everything you said at the health clinic. I felt very proud. That's how we women need to be. We don't live for what others say. We live for ourselves and for our children. I lifted my head in astonishment. I didn't expect the president to have such progressive ideas. I also know you studied business administration in college, she continued, and that you're doing some work online now. I nodded. Yes, I do some bookkeeping to earn money for Leo's formula. Perfect. The president clapped her hand on her knee. Look, Grace, in our association, we have a group of female entrepreneurs. We support each other financially. Some sew, some raise animals, others bake bread. But they all have one thing in common, a lack of tech skills. I still didn't understand where she was going. I see you have education and knowledge. Could you join our group and share your experience? Of course. We can help you too. Help me? Of course. At the association, we have access to low-interest loans subsidized by the county. They're for female entrepreneurs in difficult situations, with very low interest. If you have an idea to grow your work, we can sponsor you to get a loan. Don't think of it as charity. It's an investment. We invest in you, and you help the other members. What do you think? I was speechless. I had never thought of anything like that. I was only thinking about earning some money day by day. But the president's proposal opened up a completely new path for me. A path not just to save myself, but also to help other people. Madam President, emotion overwhelmed me, and I couldn't speak further. Thank you, really. Don't mention it, the president said, taking my hand. Think about it. Next week, we have a group meeting at the town hall. Come with Leo. You'll meet the others. You'll talk, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot. After the president left, I was in a daze for a long time. My mother was very happy. See? Even if the sky falls, there's always a way out. If you live right, good people will appear to help you. That week, I went to the meeting. In a small room at the town hall, about 20 women had gathered, some like me with babies in their arms, others with small children in tow. They were all women with their own stories, widows, divorcees, women with gambling-addicted husbands, but none of them had a sad expression. They laughed and talked, sharing experiences about raising chickens or growing vegetables. When the president introduced me, they all welcomed me with a round of applause. I felt a camaraderie and understanding among them that needed no words. I was no longer the woman abandoned by her husband. I had become Grace, a member of this new family, a community of poor but strong women. Their warm hands embraced me. For the first time, I felt that I was no longer alone in this fight. That meeting completely changed my way of thinking. Listening to the members' stories, I discovered a common problem. Many wanted to sell the vegetables they grew, the eggs from their chickens, or the bread they baked online, but they knew nothing about computers. Some didn't even know how to take a picture with their phone and upload it to a social media page. They felt lost, trying things haphazardly and sometimes getting scammed. One of the members, Martha, sighed. "Grace, I want to sell the organic eggs from my chickens online, but even if I post ads, nobody buys them. I don't know what to do. They say you have to manage orders with something called Excel or Word, but I don't even know what that is." At that moment, an idea sparked in my head. I had knowledge of accounting and was proficient with office software. Why was I only doing jobs for others? Why hadn't it occurred to me to teach them directly? I mulled over the idea for days and nights. Perhaps this was the opportunity the president was talking about. I decided to try it. I met with the president alone and explained my idea. "Madam President, I've been thinking, and I believe the members need basic computer skills. What do you think if I organize a free basic computer course for the group? We could do it online at night, when the children are asleep." The president's eyes lit up. "Really, Grace, could you do that? You just gave birth, and you have to take care of Leo." "I can do it," I said firmly. "Since it's online, 1 or 2 hours each night, I'll teach them the very basics: how to use a mouse, how to type, how to make a simple Excel sheet to calculate orders." "What a fantastic idea," the president exclaimed. "I'm delighted. If you do this, it would be wonderful. This is also a form of entrepreneurship. You're starting a venture with your knowledge. If you need anything, just ask the association, a computer or whatever." Well, I have a computer, but mine is a bit old and slow. And for the members to see me clearly, I would need a webcam and a small digital whiteboard. "All right," the president decided instantly. "Make a list of what you need. We'll approve it as an association project, the Computer Skills Classroom, and we'll give you an interest-free loan of $500 from the aid funds. Use that to buy the equipment." $500 was a lot of money. With a trembling voice, I said, "Madam President, thank you, truly." "Don't mention it," the president smiled. "You're helping the association and the other members. Give it a try. I believe in you." With the $500, I asked my brother to buy me a used but powerful laptop, a good quality webcam, and a small digital whiteboard in the city. I announced that I was starting the course. Immediately, 10 members signed up. The name of my first course was Computer Skills for Courageous Mothers. On the day of the first class, I was very nervous. I put Leo to bed early and sat in my small room. On the screen, 10 faces appeared. Some with babies in their arms, others sitting in their kitchens, one even on her porch where she had better reception. They all had an expression of anticipation. I started the class. "Hello everyone, I'm Grace. Today we're going to start by learning how to open a file on the computer." I taught calmly and in detail how to use the mouse, how to type vowels and consonants. The members followed the instructions attentively. Some took longer, but I waited patiently. The sound of crying babies and crowing roosters mixed with my voice. It was a very special classroom. A month later, the members could create their own order sheets. Martha, the one who sold eggs, was managing her sales with an Excel sheet she had created herself. She thanked me with a proud voice. The good news spread. My course was not limited to 10 members. The members' daughters and the young people of the town heard about it and also signed up. They said they couldn't spend their lives working in the factory, that they wanted to learn something to change their situation. I decided to expand the courses. This time, I charged a small tuition fee of $20 per course to cover electricity and internet costs. But the number of students kept growing, not just from our town, but from neighboring towns as well. I began to have a stable income. The hundreds of dollars I earned from bookkeeping were now supplemented by the classes. I was no longer the Grace from the recovery period. I had become Teacher Grace. When I went out with my son, people would greet me. "Hello, teacher." That title felt more valuable than gold. It was the recognition and respect I had earned with my own effort. My parents were very proud. My father boasted wherever he went. My daughter, while taking care of her child at home, is teaching the whole town. I knew this was just the beginning. Ryan was still out there, somewhere, but I was no longer afraid of him. I had new weapons, knowledge, independence, and the affection of an entire town. My life and my son's gradually stabilized. Leo turned 6 months old. He could sit up straight and was starting to babble. My online classes became increasingly popular. I had students not only from my county but also from other regions. My income reached a pretty good level. Each month, after covering all expenses, I could save over $1,500. I fixed up the room where I lived to make it more comfortable and bought new things for the house. And most importantly, I could provide my son with a life without want, without being a burden to my parents. I finally began to feel like I was truly living. I was no longer a dependent, tearful woman. I was teacher Grace Miller, self-assured and independent. But just when I felt most at ease, the storm broke again. That night, after finishing my classes and putting Leo to bed, I heard the dogs barking loudly outside. In the darkness of the night, the sharp screech of a car braking suddenly startled me. With a bad feeling, I picked up my son and went outside. My parents had already gotten up and turned on the yard light. At the gate stood Ryan, but this time he wasn't with his menacing-looking friend. He was with the lawyer from before and another man. This latter one, about 50, was elegantly dressed, wore wire-rimmed glasses, and seemed to hold an important position. Ryan looked more haggard than the last time. He looked at me with a complex expression, a mixture of anger and something akin to envy. My father, still calm, opened the gate. "You again. What do you want at this time of night?" Ryan said nothing. The lawyer from the previous visit stepped forward. "Sir, we haven't come to fight. We want to speak seriously with Mrs. Grace. If you have something to say it tomorrow. It's late," my father said, trying to close the gate. "One moment, please," the stranger said. His voice was deep and authoritative. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am attorney Lawrence Morgan, director of the firm Trust Legal, and I am this attorney's superior." He gestured to the younger one. "We have come to discuss the rights of my client, Mr. Ryan, and more importantly, the rights of the child." Hearing the words attorney and rights, my father paused. He looked at me, and I, clutching Leo to my chest, nodded. "Let them in, Dad. I want to hear what they have to say." When the 3 men entered, the air grew tense. My mother, with trembling hands, served some water. Attorney Morgan cleared his throat. "Ma'am, and you, Grace, I know there have been many misunderstandings between you. Mr. Ryan is deeply regretful. But today we are not here to talk about feelings, but about the law." He pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase. "According to the Civil Code, Mr. Ryan and you are still legally married. A child born during the marriage is, of course, the child of both. The fact that you took the child without your husband's consent, changed his last name, and his place of residence is a clearly illegal act." My heart skipped a beat. The other lawyer had said the same thing last time. But that wasn't all. Attorney Morgan continued, his words heavy with pressure. "We know that you are currently doing well. You teach classes. You have a considerable income, which is a very good thing. But you should know that the fact that you are doing well complicates this case even further." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, looking directly at me, "that Mr. Ryan has more than enough grounds to file for custody and a very high probability of winning." "What?" my mother shouted. "That's absurd. A man who abandons his wife and son is now going to sue her?" "Calm down, ma'am," the lawyer said, raising a hand. "Allow me to analyze it. First, Mr. Ryan has a stable job in Chicago, a high income, and a good home. This provides the best material conditions for the child's growth. Second, Mr. Ryan can prove that you left the home of your own accord. For example, with the rumors of infidelity. I stood up furiously. "That's your invention." "Calm down," he said, unperturbed. "In a trial, you need evidence. Even if Mr. Ryan didn't spread the rumor directly, other people did, and they can testify. But the most serious thing," he paused and looked at me, "is what you are doing now. You teach classes, but you do so without a license, without being registered as a self-employed person. You don't pay taxes. Do you know what kind of trouble you would be in if we filed a complaint with the Department of Education and the IRS?" My blood ran cold. I was paralyzed. I had never thought about that. I thought it was just a simple online job to earn money. I knew nothing about licenses or taxes. If they investigate you, you will have to pay a considerable fine, and more importantly, you will have a record for illegal economic activity. Do you think a judge would entrust a child to a mother with such a dishonorable record? Or would they give him to Mr. Ryan, an exemplary citizen with a high income? Ryan, who had been silent the whole time, smirked. It was the smile of a victor. I staggered. It was a most vile psychological attack. They weren't using violence. They were using the law, using the career I had worked so hard to build to crush me. They were cornering me. "We don't want to make this a bigger problem," Attorney Morgan said, lowering his voice. "Mr. Ryan's only wish is for you to return to Chicago with the child. He will forgive everything and guarantee both of you a comfortable life. You can continue teaching. Mr. Ryan will take care of obtaining the necessary licenses. It's the best for everyone. Think about it." He placed a paper on the table. "This is a reconciliation agreement. If you sign here, everything will be over." I looked at the agreement. My mind was in chaos. I looked at my father. He had been smoking in silence the whole time. Under the yellow light, his face was lined with deep wrinkles. The air in the house was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mother's heavy breathing, the sound of Leo stirring in my arms, and the smoke from my father's cigarette. Ryan and the two lawyers waited for me with confidence. They were sure they had my weak spot. They believed I would surrender to the threat of losing my son and my career. I was trembling. I was scared, truly scared of losing my son. Leo was my life. I was also afraid of losing my job. It was my pride and my hope. I looked at Ryan, who was smiling maliciously. I knew he wasn't asking me to come back out of love, but to control and torment me again for his own pride. I was about to break, about to sign that horrible agreement. Just then, my father put out his cigarette, stood up, and without saying anything to them, calmly walked into his room. We all held our breath, watching him. A moment later, my father returned. In his hands there was no knife or club, but an old notebook. A notebook with a worn brown leather cover, like an old ledger. My father placed it on the table, right next to the lawyer's agreement. "You've talked about laws," my father said. His voice was still deep, but it was as hard as steel. "You've said my daughter is engaged in illegal activity and that my son-in-law is an exemplary citizen. Then, look at this." My father opened the notebook. It wasn't a ledger. It was a journal, written in my father's neat, blocky handwriting. Attorney Morgan frowned. "Sir, we don't have time to read diaries." "Just look," my father interrupted him. "I'm not an educated man like you. I'm just an old farmer, but I know how to record facts." My father began to turn the pages. "On such and such a date, Grace called saying she was craving fish stew. Ryan still wasn't back from a business dinner. It was 11 o'clock at night. Grace was 5 months pregnant. On such and such a date, Grace went to the gynecologist alone. The doctor told her the fetus was weak and she needed to rest. She didn't dare tell her husband for fear he would scold her. On such and such a date, Grace fell at the market. Luckily, she wasn't hurt. She called her husband, but he didn't answer. In the end, I had to take a bus up to Chicago. My father read the entries for each day. The days I had called him crying. The days I had gone to the hospital alone. The days Ryan wasn't home. He had noted everything meticulously. Even the day his mother threw a plate at my head for breaking another one, my father knew everything. He hadn't said it, but he had been recording everything. My father's voice trembled. And here, the day Grace gave birth, her water broke at 10 p.m. Her mother and I had to call an ambulance from our town to go to Chicago. We called Ryan, and he said he was in a meeting. While my daughter was struggling in the delivery room, the man who calls himself her husband was at a karaoke bar. I have the address written down here. Ryan's face turned white, then gray. Not in his wildest dreams had he imagined that my father, an old farmer, would do something like this. "And here," my father said, slamming the table and opening the last page, "on such and such a date, in the hospital. Ryan visits his wife and tells her, 'You had him, so you raise him. Don't bother me anymore.' Anna and Laura, the mothers in the next beds, are witnesses. I have their phone numbers written down here." My father looked up and stared at Attorney Morgan. My father's eyes, which had been kind his whole life, were now burning. "Mr. Attorney, you said my daughter has broken the law," he pointed at Ryan. "Then I ask you, a husband like this, a father like this, has he not broken morality? Has he not broken the law? What law in what country allows a man to abandon his wife and child on the brink of death? What law in what country allows a man to tarnish the honor of his own wife?" Attorney Morgan was speechless. He couldn't say a thing. This journal was not a simple record of emotions. It was a criminal file. Everything had a date, a place, and witnesses. It was clearer than any excuse. "You said my daughter evades taxes," my father continued. "Fine, report her. We'll pay the fine. But at the same time, I'll take this journal and the witnesses and go to the newspapers and the television so the whole country knows what kind of person this exemplary citizen is, this sales director of a large company. Let's see if that company continues to employ a guy with such low morals. Let's see what judge rules in his favor." It was no longer a threat, it was a declaration of war. Ryan was trembling from head to toe. "Father-in-law, please." "Shut up!" my father shouted. "You have no right to call me father-in-law." Attorney Morgan stood up hastily. His face was ashen. He knew he had lost. "Sir, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. We'll be leaving now." He hurried to gather the papers from the table, and in his clumsiness, the reconciliation agreement fell to the floor. "Take that with you," my father said, pointing at Ryan. "And don't you ever come near this house again. I will take care of my daughter and my grandson. We don't need a fake father like you." The two lawyers practically dragged Ryan away. As he was leaving, Ryan turned to look at me. In his eyes, there was no longer victory, only absolute fear. The door slammed shut. My father sank into his chair. He was breathing heavily, a trembling hand on his chest. I ran and knelt beside him. Dad, are you okay?" My father waved his hand. "I'm fine. It's just the anger." He looked at me and smiled tenderly. "I told you, as long as this father is alive, no one will touch you or your son." I hugged him with all my strength. My tears soaked his old shirt. My father's journal didn't just record my pain, it was the infinite love and silent shield my father had given me my whole life. After that night, Ryan disappeared completely. No more calls, no more texts, no more visits to cause trouble. My father's journal had become a lethal weapon that had completely shattered his confidence and his vile plans. I knew that for a while at least, he could do nothing. My life finally found true peace. I threw myself into my work with all my passion. Teacher Grace's computer classroom became more and more famous. Not only did mothers and young people from the county attend, but I was also sought out by the Provincial Agricultural Cooperative. They wanted to learn how to do their bookkeeping, manage orders, and even create simple ads on social media to sell their products. The work grew so much that I couldn't do it alone. I spoke with the president of the association and hired 2 recent college graduates from the city to help me. I also applied for more government grants to turn my room into a small office and buy more computers and printers. In addition to the classes, I started offering bookkeeping services for small businesses. My income soared. Each month, after paying all expenses and my employees' salaries, I could save between $3,000 and $4,000. I decided I had to build a new house for my parents. The old single-story house leaked when it rained. I wanted my parents to spend the rest of their lives comfortably in a new, decent house. My success became an example in the county. The president and the Women's Association were very proud of me. On the occasion of Women's Day, the town council decided to organize an event to honor women who had overcome difficulties and made something of themselves. And I, of course, was the main feature. They asked me to go up on the stage of the town hall auditorium to share my experience. I was very nervous. It was the first time I had spoken in front of so many people. My mother took out her best dress for me, and my father, fidgeting, told me, "Just tell your story. Be sincere, there's nothing to worry about." That day, the auditorium was packed. All the local officials and townspeople attended. My students and the members of the entrepreneurs group also came to cheer me on. With Leo in my arms, who was now over a year old and starting to walk, I sat in the front row trying to calm my racing heart. The event proceeded with solemnity. After the mayor's speech, the president of the association introduced me with a proud voice. When I went up on stage, the whole hall erupted in thunderous applause. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I talked about the difficult days at the beginning, the help from the association, my first class. When I was in the middle of my story, a shout suddenly erupted from the back of the hall. "Liar! It's all a lie!" Everyone turned in surprise. I felt my heart stop. It was Ryan. He didn't have the haggard look of the last time. He was well dressed, but his face was red, and he reeked of alcohol. And he wasn't alone. He was with his malicious aunt and several unfamiliar young men who looked like his drinking buddies. "That woman is a fraud," Ryan shouted, pointing at me. "She's a woman of low morals, an adulteress who abandoned her husband and son, and now she's playing the saint." The hall turned into chaos. The mayor jumped up. "Security! Get those people out of here. This is an official event, not a bar." "I'm not leaving," Ryan resisted. "Today I'm going to unmask this woman, a woman who spent my money to see other men and is now deceiving the whole town. That woman." Several young people from the association ran to stop Ryan, but he and his friends resisted violently. His aunt threw herself on the floor, wailing. "Oh, my poor nephew, betrayed by his wife and now scammed by everyone." The hall filled with murmurs. Suspicious glances were once again directed at me. The president's face turned pale, and my father below was clenching his fists, about to jump. On the stage, I felt my blood run cold. Leo, scared, burst into tears in my arms. Ryan was deliberately trying to destroy me. He was trying to annihilate me at my moment of greatest glory so that I could never hold my head up again. In that moment of chaos, I saw Ryan's vile smile. He was enjoying my anguish. "No, I can't break down here. I can't let him win." The chaos in the town hall auditorium reached its peak. Ryan's shouts, his aunt's wails, the murmurs of the crowd, Leo's crying in my arms. The young men from the association got into a scuffle with Ryan's friends, and the place turned into a battlefield. From the stage, I watched it all. The initial fear vanished in an instant, replaced by an uncontrollable rage. I had endured enough. I had given in enough. Today, right here, I had to put an end to it all. I hugged Leo, approached the microphone, and took a deep breath. I didn't shout. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear and firm enough to silence all the noise. "Ryan, are you done talking?" Suddenly, the hall fell into a dead silence. Even Ryan, surprised by my attitude, stopped. I looked him straight in the eye. That I was unfaithful, that I spent your money on other men, that I'm a fraud. I turned to the young man operating the video equipment next to the stage. "Please, play that." The young man looked at me, confused. I repeated, "The USB drive I gave you earlier, projected on that big screen." I had originally prepared a simple presentation with some photos of my classes, but I didn't know it would become my weapon at this moment. The young man quickly connected the USB, and the large screen behind me lit up. The first photo appeared. It was a picture of me, my face pale and gaunt, sitting on the hospital bed. Beside me, newborn Leo, the father's place empty. I picked up the microphone. Emotion made my voice tremble. This was me 4 days after giving birth. "Ryan, you said I lived like a queen on your money. So, when I was risking my life, where were you?" The screen changed. It was a screenshot of a text message. "You had him, so you raise him. Don't bother me anymore." A murmur went through the hall. People were beginning to understand the situation. "You said I spent your money," I said, almost shouting. "This is the first money I ever earned." A bank statement appeared on the screen with a deposit of $30. Less than a month after giving birth, I spent sleepless nights enduring the pain of my scar, typing letter by letter to earn my first $30. At that moment, where were you? The photos kept changing, a picture of my first online class, the faces of 10 mothers on the other side of the screen, thank you messages from my students. "Teacher, thanks to you, I've learned to sell my products." "Grace, I sold my first eggs." I turned to the audience. "That I'm a fraud?" Then, To my students sitting there, "Have I defrauded you?" "No." Martha, the one who sold eggs, jumped to her feet. "Teacher Grace taught us how to make a living. The fraud is that man." "It's true. The teacher is our savior," the members of the association shouted in unison. Ryan's face began to pale. "He didn't expect me to be prepared for this," I continued. "That I'm a fraud." "Then what is this?" The financial report of Grace Miller Consulting appeared on the screen. Monthly income, taxes paid to the government. All the figures were clear. I run a legal business, and I pay my taxes on time. I held up my recently obtained business license. "I am not engaged in illegal activity," as someone insinuated. "I am a citizen and a taxpayer. But you," I pointed directly at Ryan's face, "you have slandered me and tarnished my honor." "On what basis?" Just then, a man in plain clothes came up to the stage from the audience. He pulled out a badge. "Mrs. Grace Miller, I'm Deputy Sanchez from the local sheriff's department. We've received a report of a public disturbance. Mr. Ryan, you and your companions will have to come with us to the station." Ryan froze. "I just came to find my wife. You are being charged with disturbing the peace and defamation. Let's go to the station." 2 other deputies approached and handcuffed Ryan and his friends. The aunt, seeing the scene, quickly got up, brushed off her clothes, and tried to slip away. I was just passing by. I don't know anything." Ryan, as he was being led away, turned to look at me. In his eyes, there was no longer anger, but pleading and fear. The doors of the hall closed. The truth had come out. The entire audience rose to their feet and applauded. The applause echoed like thunder. I stood there, holding my son tightly. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but they were tears of happiness and liberation. The president came over and hugged me. "You did so well, Grace." My father, my mother, my brother, my sister-in-law were all crying with pride. I knew that from this day forward, no rumor, no person would dare to look down on us again. I had won back my justice with my own 2 hands. After that fateful day at the town hall, my life entered a new, bright, and peaceful chapter. Ryan was fined for disturbing the peace, but the greater punishment he paid was shame. The story of his arrest at his ex-wife's award ceremony spread throughout the county. And not just here, it also reached people in Chicago. I didn't have to do anything. Ryan had fallen into the trap he had dug to harm me. His lies became the laughingstock of the town. I returned to my routine, but this time my mood was different. I was no longer afraid or worried. I was completely free. My business prospered. Grace Miller Consulting was no longer just an online classroom but a trusted office. I secured larger accounting contracts. I gave jobs to the young people of the town. I started to make my dream a reality. I tore down the old single-story house and built a new, decent 2-story house for my parents. The day we broke ground, my father, holding the shovel, was trembling. He told me, "I never dreamed I'd live in a new house. Daughter, I'm so proud of you." Leo had already learned to walk and say, "Grandma, Grandpa, and Mama." Seeing him run around the new yard made me immensely happy. I didn't forget the people who had helped me. I donated part of my profits to create a small scholarship foundation to help students with difficulties in the town. I made a donation to the President's Entrepreneurs Group to help other members finance their businesses. I was no longer a person receiving help. I had become a person who helped. One afternoon, while reviewing some accounts, I received a call. An unknown number with a Chicago area code. I answered, "Hello, Grace Miller Consulting." On the other end, a polite and calm male voice. "Yes, good afternoon. Excuse me, am I speaking with the director, Mrs. Grace Miller?" "Yes, this is she." "How can I help you?" "Good afternoon, Mrs. Miller. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Fernando Romero, Director of Human Resources at the Great Lakes Business Group. I assume you've heard of our group." I was stunned. The Great Lakes Business Group was one of the largest companies in the country. Why were they calling me? "Yes, of course. How can I help you?" Mr. Romero chuckled lightly. "To be honest, we learned about you through an article in a magazine, an article in Working Woman magazine about your story of overcoming adversity. We were very impressed. I was speechless. I had done an interview with a journalist, but I didn't know it would be published in such a prominent magazine. We've looked into your model of online classes and accounting services, and we find it very professional and practical, the director continued. Currently, our group is carrying out a project to improve the skills of our administrative staff. We've found that many employees, despite having degrees, lack practical skills in computers and accounting. My heart started to beat faster. I was beginning to guess his intentions. We've reviewed the syllabus of your online courses. It's very realistic and easy to understand. It's exactly what we were looking for. Therefore, on behalf of the group, we would like to formally invite you to Chicago as the main speaker to train our employees. I was flabbergasted. Me, a single mother from a small town, invited by a major corporation like the Great Lakes Business Group to Chicago as a speaker. I don't know what to say. I've only taught people in my town. We don't need a training certificate, Mrs. Miller, the director said firmly. We need someone with practical experience, someone who knows how to solve problems, and we believe you are that person. We will cover all your travel and accommodation expenses for you and your son. And of course, the salary will be very satisfactory. He offered me a figure I would never have dreamed of. After hanging up, I remained in a state of shock. To go back to Chicago, to that place full of pain and humiliation, I looked out at the yard. My father was watering the vegetables. My mother was cradling Leo. The new house was taking shape. This is my peace. Why would I have to go back to that noisy place? But then another thought struck me. It wasn't just about the money, it was an opportunity to prove my worth on a bigger stage, an opportunity to truly hold my head high. And suddenly, I remembered something. The company where Ryan worked was one of the small suppliers for the Great Lakes Business Group. Could it be a coincidence? A slow smile spread across my face. I made a decision. I would go. When I decided to accept the offer from the Great Lakes Business Group, I felt a mix of excitement and a sense of destiny. I would return to Chicago, not as an abandoned wife, but as a speaker. My parents fully supported me. My father told me, "Go and show the world how incredible this father's daughter is. We'll take care of the house and the grandson." But I didn't want to be separated from my son. When I mentioned to the Great Lakes Group that I wanted to bring him with me, they readily agreed. Mr. Romero immediately consented. "Don't worry. We will book a comfortable hotel room for you and the child and provide a caregiver for him while you are giving the conference." In the end, my mother decided to come with me. That way, I'll have peace of mind. I'll take care of Leo so you can focus on your work. You can't give them any reason to complain. So the three of us, my mother, Leo, and I, headed to Chicago. A luxury car from the Great Lakes Group came to pick us up at our doorstep. Our new house, though unfinished, already had an imposing form. I promised my father that when I returned, with the money I earned, we would finish the house in grand style. We stayed in a 5-star hotel. The room was a huge suite with a view of the entire Chicago skyline. My mother couldn't stop marveling, and Leo ran excitedly all over the room. Seeing them took away all my fatigue and worry. The day of the conference arrived. I put on an elegant pantsuit that I had bought with my own money. I applied light makeup. Looking at myself in the mirror, the pale, gaunt woman from the hospital was gone. I was a new person. Mr. Romero personally escorted me to the auditorium. "Today is a joint training session, Mrs. Miller. About 200 employees will be attending, including managers from our group and staff from partner companies." The hall was spacious and the air was cool. I took a deep breath. My mother was playing with Leo in the lobby. I was on my own. I went up to the podium. There was already a nameplate with my name on it. Speaker, Grace Miller, expert in practical accounting. I looked down and saw people taking their seats, and then my heart skipped a beat. In the 5th row, on the right, sat Ryan. He hadn't seen me. He was joking with the person next to him. He had the same arrogant, self-assured expression as always. I glanced at his name tag and confirmed he was from one of the partner companies the director had mentioned. My whole body trembled. Fate was capricious. It had made me run into him here. Just then, Mr. Romero approached the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Today we have the honor of having a very special speaker." The director said more, praising me and my business model, but I barely heard him. My ears were ringing. "Let's give a warm welcome to our speaker, Grace Miller." The whole hall applauded. I stood up. Ryan, upon hearing my name, stopped fiddling with his phone and snapped his head up. The smile froze on his lips. Our eyes met. I saw his face go from red to white, then to gray. He was frozen, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His colleague nudged him. "Hey, she has the same name as that ex-wife you talk so much about." Ryan didn't respond. He was petrified. I took a deep breath and regained my composure. I stopped looking at him. I looked at the entire auditorium. I smiled confidently. "Good morning, everyone. I am Grace Miller." My voice trembled at first, but it quickly became firm and powerful. "Today, I haven't come to teach you theory. I've come to share realities." I began my conference. I didn't talk about my personal life. I talked about numbers, about the deficiencies in financial reports, about the useless culture of business dinners that only waste money while internal processes are a mess. I talked about the importance of transparency and practicality. Every one of my words, unintentionally, was like a needle pricking directly at Ryan's lifestyle and way of working. I talked about sales directors who spent their days at business lunches without knowing how to read a balance sheet. I saw Ryan shrink in his seat. He didn't dare to look up, trying to hide his face. The people around him started to look at him strangely. They whispered, looking at him and then at me. My conference lasted 3 hours. I put all my passion and my painful experience into it. When I finished, the hall was silent for a moment, and then it erupted in thunderous applause. Everyone stood up. The executives of the Great Lakes Group came to shake my hand. "That was magnificent, Mrs. Miller. A very realistic presentation, just what we needed." Many people crowded around me, asking for my phone number and email address. I smiled and attended to each of them. In the midst of that crowd, I saw Ryan. He hadn't been able to leave. He was trapped in a corner. He was looking at me. In his eyes, there was no longer contempt, only confusion, a mixture of shock, shame, disbelief, and a little fear. I looked away and didn't look at him again. He was nothing in my life anymore. After it was over, I walked out of the hall with my head held high. I had given the most special conference of my life, not for revenge, but to prove to myself who I was. The 3 days of training at the Great Lakes Group were a success. Ryan did not show up for the remaining 2 days. I overheard his colleagues say that he had suddenly taken sick leave. I knew he wasn't sick. He was running from the truth, from the shame. Mr. Romero and the group's management were very satisfied. They paid me my fee and expressed their desire to sign a long-term consulting contract, primarily online. I accepted with pleasure. This trip had been a success beyond my expectations. I decided to stay for 2 more days to go sightseeing with my mother and Leo. I wanted to take my mother to the zoo and show my son the skyscrapers. We enjoyed ourselves like real tourists, taking pictures, laughing, and chatting. That afternoon, we had just returned to the hotel lobby. My mother was holding Leo, and I was pushing the stroller with our shopping. Suddenly, a shadow emerged from behind a pillar. "Grace." It was a hoarse voice. I was startled. It was Ryan. He looked deplorable. A neglected beard, wrinkled clothes, bloodshot eyes, and a strong smell of alcohol. There was nothing left of the suited man from the auditorium. My mother, upon seeing him, became instantly angry, hugged Leo tightly, and turned her back. "What are you doing here? Get lost. Don't scare my grandson." "Ma'am, Ryan stammered. He didn't dare to look at my mother. His gaze was fixed on me. "Grace, I'm sorry." He approached me, and I took a step back. Can we talk for a moment? Please, I'm begging you," he pleaded. I looked at my mother. She shook her head, but I knew I had to put an end to this matter. "Mom, go up to the room with Leo. It will only be a couple of words." My mother hesitated but finally nodded. "Be careful. If he gets violent, scream." My mother went towards the elevator with Leo, who, sensing the strange atmosphere, kept looking back. The lobby was almost empty. Only Ryan and I remained. When he looked at me, tears began to well up in his red eyes. "Grace, I didn't know. I didn't know you had become so incredible. Do you have something to say to me?" I asked in a cold voice. I got fired from my job, Ryan said, almost sobbing. After that day, my boss called me in. He said the Great Lakes Group had complained that we had sent a person without ethics or professionalism. They canceled the contract with my company, and my boss blamed it all on me. I got fired. I remained silent. It was karma. I've lost everything, Ryan cried out. But it was a cry without force. My career, my reputation. I go home, and my friends look at me like I'm a freak. I can't even go out anymore. That's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. I turned to leave. Wait. Ryan knelt in the middle of the luxurious hotel lobby. He crawled over and grabbed the hem of my pants. Grace, please, I know I was a bastard. I know how badly I treated you, but please, can't you forgive me? I froze. The man who had been my husband, so arrogant, was now kneeling at my feet. Come back with me. Let's start over, he sobbed. I promise you. I'll change, really, I'll work. I'll earn money and take care of you and our son. I will never, ever treat you like that again. I looked at the man, crying miserably at my feet. I felt nothing in my heart. No compassion, no hatred, only pity. It's too late, Ryan. I gently pushed his hand away. You can't unspill water. But what about our son? He lifted his head. Leo, he's my son. I saw him. He's beautiful. He looks a little like me. He has nothing to do with you. Yes, he does, he shouted. He's my son. I have a responsibility too. Grace, please, let me see my son. Let me be a father. His late tears fell on the cold marble floor. Those tears couldn't erase the words. You had him, so you raise him. Get up, I said in a tired voice. You're embarrassing me. Your problems are not my concern, but for my son's sake, I will give you a chance. Hearing my words, I'll give you a chance. Ryan reacted as if a life raft had been thrown to him. He scrambled to his feet, wiped his tears, and looked at me with eyes full of hope. Really? You and I? I cut him off. We will never be together again. Let that be clear. Ryan's face fell, but he nodded repeatedly. I know. I wouldn't dare ask. Just my son. I don't want Leo to grow up not knowing his father, I said slowly and clearly. Nor do I want him to hold a grudge against you in the future. Therefore, I will give you the opportunity to fulfill your responsibility as a father, but you will have to follow my rules. I'll follow any rules, any at all. Tomorrow morning, we'll meet in this hotel's coffee shop. Come alone, don't come drunk, and dress decently. I finished speaking and, without looking back, went up in the elevator. The next morning, when I arrived at the agreed-upon place, Ryan was already there. He had shaved and cleaned himself up, but he still looked like a tired and defeated man. Seeing me, he quickly stood up and offered me a chair. I didn't sit. I placed some papers and a pen on the table. Read this. It was a parental responsibility agreement that I had drafted overnight, consulting the law on my own. Ryan took the papers with trembling hands. First, I said, we will initiate divorce proceedings by mutual agreement. There are no assets to divide. Sole legal and physical custody of our son, Leo Miller, will be mine. He nodded. Second, child support. I know you've lost your job, so I won't demand too much, but you have to take responsibility. Every month, you will deposit $300 into this account. I pointed to the account number I had written down. It's a savings account I've opened in Leo's name. It will be for his education. No one, not you or me, will be able to touch that money. $300 for an unemployed person was not a small amount, but it wasn't impossible. I agree. Third, and most importantly, I said, emphasizing the visitation schedule. You can see the child once a month, on the last Sunday, in my town. You will have to call me in advance, and you can only be with him at my parents' house. Under no circumstances can you take the child anywhere else without my written consent. Hearing about going to the town, he seemed to hesitate for a moment. I don't want our lives to be disrupted. If you want to see your son, you will have to go where he lives. You cannot take him to your parents' house, nor allow him to see people like your aunt who insulted us. Can you do that? Ryan lowered his head. I can. Sign here. I handed him the pen. Ryan signed both copies of the agreement without hesitation. I kept one. I'll send you the divorce papers later. Now go. Keep what little dignity you have left. Start a new life and fulfill your responsibility as a father. I finished speaking and turned away. At that moment, all the resentment was over. We returned to our town. With the money from the Great Lakes Group contract, we were able to finish my parents' house. It became the most beautiful 2-story house in town. On the day of the housewarming, my father cried with happiness. He went all over town bragging about the office I had built for him. My daughter built this for me. She's my pride. I didn't build a house for myself. I transformed my old room into a professional office. Grace Miller Consulting officially opened its doors. The president of the association came to cut the ribbon, and my students brought me plants as congratulatory gifts. My office was small but cozy. I hired 2 young recent graduates from the town. I helped them and, at the same time, gave them professional training. Thanks to the consulting contract with the Great Lakes Group and the growing number of clients, my income was stable and very high. I not only supported my family but also began to give back to the community. A year after returning from Chicago, my life was completely different. My parents' new house was always full of laughter. My father no longer worked hard in the fields. He dedicated himself to caring for a small bonsai garden and a pond. He read the newspaper and drank tea in the mornings. His greatest joy was teaching Leo numbers and letters. My mother had rejuvenated. She went to exercise classes in town. Her face lit up, and she looked happy. My brother and sister-in-law's lives also improved. I helped my brother get a loan to replace his old truck. He was now responsible for transporting organic products for the entire province. A large part of those products were produced by the members of the association whom I had advised. My sister-in-law no longer worked so hard. I put her in charge of the accounting for my own office, a comfortable and well-paid job. Grace Miller Consulting now had 5 employees. I expanded my services beyond computers and accounting, offering legal advice and brand consulting for agricultural products. I became the respected teacher Grace Miller throughout the province. I founded the Leo Miller Scholarship, a foundation named after my son, and every year I gave scholarships to dozens of students with difficulties. Leo had already turned 2. He was a smart, active, and very affectionate child. He adored his grandfather. He was the center of our large family. Our little son, Ryan, kept his promise. He sent me the divorce papers, and we legally became strangers. Every last Sunday of the month, he would show up in his old, battered car. He no longer looked elegant or miserable. He was just an ordinary man who came to see his son. He brought toys for Leo and tea for my father. He would sit on the porch and watch Leo play. Leo got used to his presence. He called him Dad. He showed him his new toys and sang him the songs his grandfather had taught him. But after a while, he would always run back to his grandfather's arms. Ryan would sit there, watching the scene. In his eyes, I saw regret, longing, and an indescribable sadness. He could be here, but he was eternally outside the fence of this happiness. He could see the family, but he could not belong to it. That was the costly lesson and the punishment he would have to carry for the rest of his life. Today is Sunday. Ryan is in the yard playing marbles with Leo. From the second-floor balcony, I watch them. My mother and sister-in-law are preparing dinner, and my father, sitting at the table, smiles as he watches his grandson. The house is full of laughter. The president of the association, passing by on the street, looks at our house and says, "Looking at your family, Grace, anyone would be envious." I smiled. I looked at the golden fields, ready for harvest. A beautiful sunset stretched out like a painting. "Yes," I said, "I believe that happiness is not the absence of storms. It's the process of realizing you're still standing after the storm has passed and confirming who the people who haven't abandoned you are." There was a time I thought happiness was marrying a rich man in Chicago, but I was wrong. Happiness was being myself, being the master of my own life, being with the people I love. I lost 5 years of my life, but I gained a whole lifetime ahead. I looked at Leo, who was smiling radiantly. Yes, when a woman owns herself and has peace in her heart, life blossoms on its own.